Fort Knox. The name alone makes people think of massive gold reserves and an impenetrable fortress. But the real question nobody has been talking about, how much gold is actually there? Well, that might be about to change, as it could be a target for DOGE. What are they really hiding behind those doors? They say 147 million troy ounces are locked behind a 21-inch steel door. But there hasn't been a real audit in decades. The few checks in the past were just government-run PR stunts. Meanwhile, they print more money, devaluing your savings and expect you to trust them. They actually expect that. It's ridiculous. I've been studying these markets for decades now, and trust me, you're not going to believe what's actually there. I'm going to cover that, but first let me explain to you some of the history behind it. Fort Knox was built in 1936 to protect the US gold reserves. But think about this. Who really benefited from this? In 1933, Americans were forced to hand over their gold to the Federal Reserve under Executive Order 6102, signed by, who else? Franklin D. Roosevelt. The government took control of everyone's gold while the public got stuck with paper money backed by, well, nothing, unless you count the military and fear. And during World War II, they used Fort Knox to store important documents like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Almost like they knew financial freedom, just like those papers, was just becoming a thing of the past. So what else do they have in there? Nobody really knows. A so-called audit happened in 1953, but they checked only 5% of the vault. Imagine asking a bank to verify its cash reserves and they only count one drawer. But what's even funnier is that it wasn't even independent. It's like asking a child to tell you what's in their piggy bank. They'll say anything. Trust me, bro. In 1974, a few reporters and politicians got a quick tour. They saw some gold bars, they took a few pictures and left. No real audit, no real transparency, just a carefully staged show with government officials. Sounds like North Korea. Now we live in a world where transparency is key and can be proven by technology. Fort Knox supposedly holds over $290 billion in gold. But there's no independent verification. What are they hiding? Is the vault empty? Was the gold sold to foreign countries? Or worse, was it swapped for fake gold-plated tungsten? Every business, bank, and even charities get audited. But the gold reserves backing the US dollar? Silence. If Bitcoin can be verified by anyone at any time, why can't the same be done with Fort Knox? Why? Because they don't want you to know. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Tungsten is almost the same weight as gold. It weighs around 19.25 grams per cubic centimeter, where gold weighs around 19.28. It makes it perfect for counterfeiting. Governments, central banks, and even criminals have, it's the same, have been caught using gold-plated tungsten bars to manipulate markets. And if Fort Knox is hiding something, tungsten is probably part of the story. The people in power have every reason to keep the public in the dark while they hoard real assets. But you know where this gets even better? Well, you won't believe who controls 80% of the world's tungsten exports. China. That's right, China controls over 80% of the world's tungsten supply. Recently, they put new export restrictions on tungsten and other key minerals. Why? Because controlling resources means controlling the game. Meanwhile, the US shut down most of its tungsten mines. Think about that. The US might be holding fake gold, and China is sitting on a huge supply of the material needed to make it. The system isn't just broken, it was designed this way. Bitcoin is different. You don't need to trust anyone. Every Bitcoin transaction is on the blockchain, public, verifiable, and nobody can change it. Meanwhile, Fort Knox and the entire fiat system is run on trust in the same people who have lied for decades, and there's no chance they're going to stop that anytime soon. If the gold is really there, why not let an independent audit happen? The answer is simple. Their power depends on secrecy and that they have power in the first place through fear. Proof of reserves is the future. Whether it's gold, Bitcoin, or any other asset, if you can't verify it, you don't own it. Heidi and I built our strategic reserves over a decade ago after realizing how corrupt and broken the system is, and that's not the only crypto we're buying. If you want to see the full portfolio of what we're buying right now and when we plan on selling, then check out the sale on learningcrypto.com. The description is below. The best thing about Bitcoin is that it removes trust from the equation. No audits, no secret deals, just decentralized public ledger. Meanwhile, gold reserves, especially the ones at Fort Knox, are wrapped in mystery, fake audits, and government excuses. How freaking lame is that? Bitcoin supply is fixed at 21 million coins. And what about gold? No one really knows how much exists, how much is in Fort Knox, or how much has been quietly sold off. Transparency wins. Bitcoin wins. There's no better alternative, and it's very clear right now that there is zero alternative for this. Fort Knox is a symbol of the old financial system, built on trust with no proof. The vaults aren't locked for security. They're locked so you don't ask any questions. The answer isn't another fake audit. It's a system where trust is irrelevant and verification is everything. Bitcoin is the future. Proof of reserves, decentralization, and full transparency will make the old system obsolete, and it already is in many cases. The question isn't if Fort Knox still has gold. The question is, why are we still trusting a system that refuses to prove anything? Don't wait up for them to catch up. Opt out, stack sats, build wealth on something you can verify. The age of blind trust is finished.